Hey guys, it's CWillHD here, and today we're covering glitches from every mainline Pokemon game on the 3DS. I've made videos on all 4 3DS titles, Pokemon X and Y, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Sun and Moon, and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So I thought it was time to do another compilation video for you guys, like I did with the Switch Pokemon titles a few months ago. This video has all the glitches covered in all the titles, with some of these glitches existing in multiple generations. So you'll get to see those and how they behave differently on each one too. But still, all these games feature some truly interesting glitches like using leftovers 4 times in a single turn, guaranteeing one-hit KO moves never miss, shutting off the game's music, and of course, getting out of bounds. So get comfy, grab some refreshments, there are chapters in the description if you want to skip around, try not to laugh at my mic quality with some of the older videos, and let's get started with all the glitches that work in all of the Nintendo 3DS Pokemon games. Before defeating Viola in the Santaloon City Gym, there will be a tarp covering the back of the tent preventing you from leaving through the staircase. However, if you walk past her and go to the back left spot of the tent, then move down one, the tent will be slightly transparent, allowing you to see yourself. But also notice how the tarp is gone. Does this let you leave the gym early? Nope. The collision is still there regardless and will stay there until you defeat the gym. But it's still kinda odd that you can see through the tarp here. It probably just has something to do with layering and textures though. Next up is a pretty cool one. You're going to need an egg that's about to hatch in the Poke Radar. Walk into the grass and use the radar, and as the theme is playing, run around to hatch the egg. When the O pops up, quickly go to the egg hatching and you'll hear the music glitch out a little. It plays the route music before cutting to the egg theme. After closing out of the egg cutscene, you'll come back to the route but there will be no music playing at all. It's just the normal game sounds. It's kinda off not hearing any cheery music, but this glitch doesn't stop here. Run into the grass and encounter a Pokemon. After running or defeating it, the egg hatching music will come back out of nowhere and replace the normal route music. And finally, that's the end of our music swapping journey. You can correct the music by entering a new area. I guess you really confused the game with all the track switching going on. Between getting no music at all and getting the egg hatching in the overworld, it's a pretty fun one. When in battle, there are a few moves that can cause some graphical glitches with levels. The first category is double battles and a multi-turn move such as Fly. My Talonflame is about to reach level 59, so I used Fly and then killed one of the trainer's Pokemon with my Chestnut. Talonflame was still in the air as it gained enough XP to level up to 59, but after the text was gone, my level still displayed 58. Like I said before, this is just a graphical glitch, and if you check the bottom screen, the correct level is shown. It just doesn't update on the top screen for some reason. This doesn't even last that long, as you can see when I land and gain more XP from the other Pokemon, the level gets fixed. I wanted to try it again with a level 1 Pokemon to see if leveling up multiple times would correct the state. So I had a Starly hold a Quick Claw to use Fly first and then knock out one of their Pokemon again. He ended up gaining enough XP to get all the way to level 15, but the entire time it still displayed 1. He even learned a few new moves and nothing would correct it. However, as soon as I came back on the ground, the proper level was finally displayed. Another move that can cause this glitch is U-turn. As you can see, I'm 10 XP away from leveling up my Hawlucha. I headed into a hoarding counter, used U-turn on one of them, and killing it gave me enough XP to level up to 30. But as I'm given the choice to swap, the level on screen still reads 29. The bottom screen and summary displays the correct level though. You can basically do the exact same thing with Volt Switch too. If a Pokemon levels up after killing with the move, the level will display incorrectly again. This doesn't mean they lost the level or anything, it's just a little graphical glitch. For this next one, you're going to need a foreign Pokemon from any other region but your own, so it has that little tag at the top. With the regular Pokemon in the first slot and the other in the second, pull up the summary of the first and then press right to open the second page with the other information. Now press down to switch to the second and then go back up to the first. Press left to go to the first summary page again and you'll notice the Pokemon with the other region's tag added. Well, not really. It's just a graphical glitch and will get corrected if you switch off of the Pokemon again. For some reason, the tag doesn't get removed when you're on the second page of the summary and then go back to it, so you could trick people for a brief moment. This next glitch takes 0 setup and occurs during normal playthroughs without you probably even noticing. When interacting with the PC to deposit Pokemon, change your party around, or whatever you're doing, when you close this screen and go back to the menus, something strange can happen. For a single frame, the menu will be messed up and look like this. For starters, the selections aren't even in the correct spots, with the Organize Items button completely missing. And the more obvious difference, the logout option is replaced with numbers going from 1 to 9, 0, and then back to 1 and 2. A frame later, as the menu fades in more, it corrects itself, but it's still really strange. It doesn't happen every time you close the PC, and I couldn't figure out a consistent way to get it. It happened to me about half the time I would look for it. But this bug doesn't stop there. I tried messing around with other menus, and when interacting with the Hall of Fame section, a similar thing happens. There's an extra button added to the top with a similar set of increasing numbers, but this one had an extra 3 and 4 at the end. Probably due to the logout error cutting off the other 2 numbers on the bottom down below. Again, it can be really hard to notice if you aren't paying attention, as it only happens for a single frame while the menu is fading in. I'm not sure why it happens, but it's technically the easiest glitch to pull off in the game. Over in the middle of Lumio City where the gym is, there's some incorrect collision going on in this section. You can just skate and run inside the railing. You aren't able to go any further than this, but you definitely aren't supposed to be able to do this as it is. It doesn't happen on any of the other corners, just these 2. I'm pretty sure this is due to the path that's directly across from the glitched one. The main entrance has these 2 totems out front, and as you can see, the corners here are cut out, which matches the glitch collision on the other side. Again, this means nothing, but it's still worth pointing out. I wish the camera wasn't pinned so far out so we could get a closer look though. This next glitch is pretty crazy. We're going to need a Pokemon that has the ability Symbiosis like Floetta holding leftovers, and another Pokemon that's holding an eject button, so any will work here. Head into a double battle with these 2 Pokemon in the first 2 slots and throw them out. We want to have our eject button Pokemon take damage so the item activates, which will cause Floetta's Symbiosis to pass the leftovers to the Pokemon who's getting swapped out. And now we have the glitch activated, but to see this effect we need to throw out another Pokemon due to the eject button and then swap back into it. With the Pokemon back out, the newly received leftovers will activate not just once, but 4 times. This means the Pokemon will get healed an extra 3 times in a single turn. It's a kind of strange sequence as the animation of it actually being used happens on the first and third times, but each time its healed message will still show up. This glitch state will last the entire battle or until the Pokemon is knocked out, which might be kinda hard as it's recovering so much HP every turn. As if this glitch wasn't broken enough, basically any item can be used in place of the leftovers and have increased effects. For example, if you hold a life orb, it'll double the damage but also double the HP you lose. Another is any choice item like Choice Band, which will be doubled as well. So the possibilities are kinda endless for this glitch. If you'd like to read a list of all the items and what changes with them, I'll leave a link in the description below. On the topic of battle glitches, this one is broken in a bad way. If a Pokemon hurts itself in confusion and drops below the HP required for the item to activate, it won't actually be used. For some reason, taking damage due to confusion doesn't trigger the game to use the item, and it won't activate until the Pokemon takes damage from someone else. My Jolteon was holding Berry Juice, which normally activates after he drops below half HP, but due to this confusion glitch, he never used it to recover and died due to his low HP. So this can be a pretty annoying glitch if you're in a tight battle and were to lose because of it. When interacting with signs in the game, you have a small window of time to turn around and the text will still be displayed. For some reason, I can only get this glitch to work while on roller skates and not regular walking. It might have something to do with how fast you turn around in these states. But anyway, you can do this anywhere in the game. I was hoping you could do it with NPCs too, but I don't think you can. Another glitch with signs can be found on Route 7. When walking parallel to any sign in the game, you'll turn your head sideways, giving you the option to still read it. But for some unknown reason, the sign outside the daycare doesn't give you this option. Your head just stays facing straight ahead. It's not even like it's a different or unique sign, it's the same design that can be found throughout the game. It just doesn't give you the option to read it. To my knowledge, this is the only sign in the game that doesn't allow you to, but there's no real harm here, as it's nothing too major. A pretty odd bug can occur when fighting a Sky Trainer. Face off against one and after the battle is over, you should be able to interact with them, but you can't. I tried to walk around and press A, but they wouldn't talk to me. To fix this, you need to leave the area and then come back. When you walk up to the trainer this time, they'll actually talk to you like they should have to begin with. I'm guessing there is some flag that is improperly set or implemented until you reload the area. This happens with all the Sky Trainers in the game, but it's not really that big a deal. Back on Route 7 in the Battle Chateau, you'll probably face off against Baroness Francine. She has a Flabébé with an interesting trait. It actually has the cry of Floetta, which is her evolution. Have a listen. And now here are the correct cries. It's strange that to my knowledge this is the only incorrect cry in the whole game. It might have something to do with the fact that you can fight Flabébé at higher levels like 25, which at that point it should be evolved, so maybe that's why. But at the same time mine's only level 15, so it's a mystery to me. While in the overworld, stand near something you can interact with and have the super training menu pulled up. Click an option on the touchscreen followed by the A button shortly after. Instead of opening the training menu, you'll stay on the regular screen and interact with the object. You'll hear the sound effect like you pressed it, but nothing will happen. You can do this when interacting with signs, NPCs, and even entering new areas. This will also work with the Pokemon and Me menu too. When Pokemon X and Y were originally released, there was a pretty major game-breaking glitch that some players experienced. Upon saving their game in the north and south boulevards of Lumiose City and then quitting, when they went to reload the game, players would be stuck, not able to move at all, sometimes with textures missing too. Players were then completely stuck here, and even trying to reload the save again wouldn't work. Nintendo came out with an official statement warning the players of where they should not save. Alongside this, they released a patch which corrected the issue, and even players who were currently stuck would be all good. According to articles online, this patch came out on October 25th, 13 days after the worldwide release on October 12th. The amount of players who experienced this glitch is unknown. Lumiose is the main central city in Kalos, so the fact that there was such a major glitch here that prevented players from potentially playing the game for almost 2 weeks is pretty crazy. On top of that, I'm sure some players didn't even know the patch was out or didn't have any access to the internet, so who knows how many people were stuck for weeks or months. Anyway, it's good that Nintendo fixed this issue pretty quickly, but it's still a major error on their part. During your Elite Four run, you'll face off against Drosna with her Dragon-type Pokemon. To perform the glitch, you're going to need a Pokemon that knows Aura Sphere. Have them out when she throws out her Dragalge, which should be her first choice. Now use the move, and as the animation is finishing up, a thick black bar will appear in the middle of the screen. It can be hard to see though, as it's only on screen for a few frames. Later in battle, she'll throw out her Druddigon. If you use Aura Sphere again, there will be another black bar that pops up. It only happens when attacking these two Pokemon, and I'm not entirely sure why. The animation just clips through everything, including the background decorations. A similar glitch can be found in the post-game after the Elite Four. Chapter 2 of the Looker Bureau has you going into back alleys to fight some younger trainers. When in a battle, use Fire Blast with a large Pokemon such as Rayquaza. As the animation is happening, the camera pans out, and the building in the background completely disappears, leaving a huge hole in the ground for a brief moment. You can do this with all the battles here and get the same result. In Chapter 5 of the same post-game mission, you'll head down into Lysandre Labs and reach a room containing the stolen Pokeballs. However, if you take the time to inspect the room, you might notice there are some invisible Pokeballs. Well, not really. There's just some weird mapping going on, as if you press A at the end of the table, it'll read the message, "It's someone else's Pokeball." Trying to check the same spot from other angles won't even work. You can also sit down in the chair and find another invisible one. It looks like these are the only 2 spots in the room that have this incorrect mapping, so it's kinda odd. This first one's more of a negative glitch, as it just makes things annoying. We need a level 39 Wailmer who's close to evolving after this battle. Begin by finding a spot in the water to surf on, then pull out your fishing rod to encounter a Pokemon. Do whatever you'd normally do and defeat it. Upon winning, make sure your Wailmer actually gets enough XP to get up to level 40. This will begin the evolution cutscene to Wailord. After that's over, the game will attempt to reload the world, but never does. We simply get a black screen with this music playing. We've now soft-locked the game, which means you're going to have to reset the game in order to correct this state. I tried everything I could while on the black screen and try and force something to happen, but no matter how many buttons I pushed or touchscreens I touched, nothing seemed to show any signs of working. So now you're just forced to reset and start all over from your previous save point. The reason this glitch happens is due to the custom Wailmer surfing model. When you're on the water with Wailmer, you actually get to see the Pokemon itself, but Wailord doesn't have a custom one, so when you surf on him, you just get the default one. Since we were on the Wailmer and then evolved, the game tried to load us back on the Wailmer model, but failed. So the ending result is this annoying old softlock. I'm surprised the developers missed this, as surfing with Wailmer is pretty common, so I'm sure a good amount of people experience this glitch accidentally. On the topic of glitches that most people have come across, I'm positive almost everyone's experienced this glitch before. Open up the PC and take a look at your Pokemon. Back out of this and pay close attention to the bottom screen when the options are fading back in. It can be extremely hard to see, but for a single frame, the buttons are not in their correct spots. Organize items is missing, and the logout option is replaced with increasing numbers. It's pretty strange, and I'm not sure really why it happens. It doesn't even occur every single time. Sometimes when I would back out, it would be completely fine. This can also occur in the Records tab when you take a look at the Hall of Fame stuff. This one's even more messed up, as there are 4 buttons instead of 3, and even more increasing numbers. My only guess is that the game is loading a template of the menus, which is why you see 4 buttons every time, before the game corrects itself and loads the options for that specific screen. But that's just a theory. A game theory. Over on Route 12, you'll find this hiker jogging in a circle near the Mount Chimney cable car. As he's walking on the top part of his route and he's on the screen, simply walk up and stand in this patch under the tree. The hiker will continue to jog but not move at all. He's just stuck there in a never-ending loop. You can give this guy a break by opening your menu, to which he'll stop moving entirely. For some reason this spot just always makes him stop running. You can technically do it any time, so you can stop him in different places. I also discovered if you run to this spot, he'll stop moving entirely without you even opening the menu. I'm not exactly sure why this happens. Maybe the game thinks you're out of the view of this guy's model and doesn't want to keep his cycle loaded. Whatever the reason, it's kinda weird. Next up, we need to be at the battle resort. Walk up to this guy who will teach Pokemon moves for battle points. Go through the normal process of selecting a move and trying to teach it to one of your Pokemon that already knows 4 moves. Select any of the moves to delete, as we're not actually going to teach it to them. When the dialogue of, "You're good with having it forget that move," comes up, choose no. Then say yes to giving up on learning it. The next text box will glitch out and say, "The move it's forgetting did not learn the new move." It should have said my Pokemon's name did not learn the move, but instead it says the old move. This happens every single time you do this, regardless of what moves you try. I guess the developers goof with the coding on this one, but it's nothing too major anyway, so it's not a big deal. Staying in the battle resort, this time head over to the daycare annex. Stick any 2 Pokemon in there as long as they can breed and produce an egg. This lad, and yes, his name actually is Daycare Lad, is in charge of the eggs and will have his back turned until one is ready. Then he'll face forward, which means you can talk to him. However, if you only run around between this set of stairs on the left and the puddle up inside the annex, he will never turn around. No matter how long you stay spinning in circles or pacing back and forth, he will stay facing the fence. But if you go up and talk to him after taking the required amount of steps, he'll still give you the egg regardless of this direction. It's still annoying though, as he never turned around. You can also do this while going inside the annex itself. As you can see, when I entered the building, the lad was already facing forward ready to give me the egg. But after coming back outside, he was like, nah. Again, you can still get the egg regardless. This glitch could actually be kinda harmful if you are trying to hatch a bunch of eggs. If you're just chilling in this area riding around on your bike, you'll never know when an egg is actually ready. I'd definitely be aware of this bug if you plan on using this daycare to breed Pokemon. For this next one, you had to have set your language to German. So whether that means you're actually German or just had the language set to it, this glitch is for you. Over in Dewford Town, head up Route 106 and into Granite Cave. Inside you'll find this hiker who gives you TM70 Flash. In a German's case, Blitz. But then in the next text box he calls it a VM, which is normally HMs in English. I guess this is a translation error, but it actually happens in other languages too. In the French version he gives you CT70, then goes on to say CS Flash. In Italian the hiker gives you MT70, but then mentions
Mossa nascosta,
which is the HM equivalent again. So yeah, you get the idea. I believe the reason for this is due to Flash originally being an HM in Ruby and Sapphire. If you were to talk to the same hiker from the old game, he says, "Teach that hidden move Flash to a Pokemon and use it." He says the same exact line in this game too, but instead it's a TM. So I guess this is simply a translation error from converting the game and not correcting Flash to a TM. That was a really long explanation for such a minor glitch. My bad. Speaking of minor glitches in Granite Cave, this one takes place slightly later in the game. After beating the game and starting the Delta episode, you'll have to head back in here to Balzinia. However, when she asks if you're ready to go, say no. Hop on your bike and talk to Aster, her Whismer. You'll crouch down and the bike will disappear. Upon closing the text box, you'll stand up normally with the bike gone. However, the second you move, you'll magically pop back onto your bike and start pedaling around. That's it. That's the glitch. You can also open your menu and you'll snap back on the bike right away. As well as talking to Whismer repeatedly will cause it to look like this. Pretty cool, right? Right? Listen, I had to play through this whole game just to get to this exact point. So let me just have my moment. This glitch was totally worth the amount of time I spent, and I'd highly recommend you delete your completed save data just to get here and do this one. Up next, we got a battle glitch. We're going to need a Zoroark and a Primal Kyogre or Groudon. Have the legendary in your last slot and Zoroark in one of the first 2 slots that will transform. Now we gotta find a double battle, so I'm using the one in Victory Road. Anyway, once in the battle, your Zoroark will be Kyogre or Groudon. You now need to swap out the other Pokemon on the field with you into said legendary, and pray that they don't attack the mon that stayed in or you'll break your disguise. Once the primal version is on the field and you manage to not get attacked, try and use a move on your next turn. You'll notice that both of the icons for your Pokemon are the primal version, even though Zoroark Kyogre for me is obviously not primal. This effect will last until you get attacked and return to your regular form. It's still kinda cool to see these 2 big legendaries side by side and a neat little side effect of it. Let's stick with some battle glitches. We need a Pokemon with a semi-invulnerable move. such as dive, fly, or dig. Just one that takes 2 turns to actually land. Have a Pokemon who's about to be leveled up use it in a double battle. Now have your other Pokemon attack so it kills the opponent and gains XP. It'll level up, however it won't actually update the number on the top screen. You'll see I was supposed to be level 100 here, but I stayed at level 99. This is simply a visual bug, as you can see the bottom screen displaying the proper level. After the next turn plays out, the glitch will get corrected and you'll see the true level. You can get a pretty similar glitch to occur when using the move Volt Switch or U-Turn during a trainer or horde battle. Have a Pokemon that's close to leveling up and knows either of these moves. Use it on one of the Pokemon and make sure it's enough to knock it out. They'll gain XP, level up, and when they return, the level on screen will still show the previous level they were at. Again, the bottom screen reads the new level, but I guess something with the game not refreshing the check on the top screen means we're still at the previous level. Like I said, this works with either Volt Switch or U-Turn. I used Pachirisu, who was able to learn both moves and was able to trigger the glitch both times. Moving on to a very useful glitch, we're going to need a Pokemon with the Symbiosis ability holding leftovers, so I'm using Floetta. We need another Pokemon holding an eject button, as well as a third Pokemon just to switch into, so it doesn't really matter what it is. Now head into a doubles battle and throw them out. Once the eject button Pokemon is attacked, he'll dip out of there, and due to the Floetta having Symbiosis, she'll pass on her leftovers to the Pokemon that's leaving. The glitch is basically activated at this point. All we gotta do is choose the other Pokemon to throw out and then re-swap the Pokemon. Now once this turn ends, you'll see the glitch in action. The leftovers will pop and heal the Pokemon. And then again, and then again, and again one more time. This glitch allows you to use leftovers 4 times each and every turn. Unless the trainer's stupid Pokemon uses knockoff and cancels the whole thing. Anyway, while the glitch is active, it's really handy. So enjoy being able to heal up a bunch in between every turn. You'll see the animation for it on the first and third times. Not only can you pull off this glitch with leftovers, but a lot of other items too. A Life Orb will make you double the damage, but also make you lose double the HP yourself too. Razor Claw will boost the chance of a crit by 2 instead of 1, and so on. I'll leave a link in the description to all the items that work with this one if you want even more out of this glitch.
Okay. I know I usually start off with one of the best glitches, and this is no exception at all. I'll explain more why this glitch is already so special to me in a minute, but I wanted to get into what it is and how to do it. So as you can see, I'm just running around out of bounds like I have a walkthrough walls action replay code on or something, but I can promise you this is the vanilla game. By petting a Tauros in a specific spot, we can somehow shut off the game's collision and run around Hawali City in a very unique way. Hawali City? I don't know. Someone's gonna tell me in the comments. So this interaction takes place about 2 to 3 hours into starting a new game, after you take down Team Skull for the first time at the marina. You're then supposed to head up to Route 2, which there is a Tauros that will be waiting for you to pet them again. After the dialogue, you'll be able to walk up and press A on them. We need to do this from a very specific spot, and that's on this line in the road, standing as far away as you can from the Tauros while still being able to interact with them. Basically just try and mimic where I'm standing now and press A. Some more dialogue will happen, but you'll see once the text box closes, your character shifts a few inches forward. This is what triggers the glitch. It may take a few tries, as it took me around 10 plus times, but if you stood in just the right spot and got the right shift, when you try and run into the tree, you just go right through it. The game's collision is now basically gone at this point, allowing us to run all over Hawali City any way we want to. You can stay out of bounds, exploring the outer perimeter of water, but the game also just lets you run through buildings, walls, and just about anything else. This whole thing really just blew my mind the first time it happened, as the setup sounds crazy, but that little shift in the dialogue is what made all the difference. I just ran around the city for a while and saw all there was to see. Hitting any load zone for any other route or going near doors will cause you to transition to that area, effectively correcting the glitch. So just keep that in mind. Running off randomly in any direction will get you to the Void, which is just an endless dark area with this blue going across the top. I tried running straight for about 10 minutes, but nothing really happened. But yeah, this was really exciting for me to try out, as this glitch was never really talked about online. I actually just stumbled across a YouTube video from 7 years ago showing this glitch off, and at first glance I was pretty dang skeptical, as it's one of those, trust me bro, no hacks or mods, with a pretty poor video quality and very little explanation. I really had no expectations of this working, but I knew I had to at least test it before crossing it off my list. So I spent a good 2 or 3 hours playing through the opening story just for this. And let me tell you, my jaw hit the floor after at least 10 attempts of it not working. I was just about to give up when I finally pulled it off out of nowhere. You may need to save and reset a couple times to get the position perfect, but it's honestly worth the 10 to 15 minutes you'll probably spend setting this up. I fell in love with this glitch just because it's one of those classic poor quality YouTube videos that are usually fake a good 90% of the time, so I don't think anyone one really bothered to look into it. So I was very shocked when it ended up working, and I can proudly say this guy was not lying. You may need to start from a new save, but if you're someone who loves exploring out of bounds, I highly recommend this one. Since we're already at the beginning part of the game, let's cover another one super quick. This one is not nearly as cool, but it's still interesting. This takes place only a few minutes after the Tauros thing when taking on the first trial. Depending on whether you play Pokemon Sun or Moon, a different totem Pokemon will appear here. Sun is Gumshoos and Moon is Alolan Raticate. Well, regardless of which game you're playing, when the totem Pokemon first appears, you will always hear Gumshoos cry play. This is what an Alolan Raticate normally sounds like for context. So I guess the devs forgot to change the cry that plays here when making Moon. But it's also kind of sloppy by them, as this is the first major totem Pokemon fight and it has a bug in it. Sun obviously doesn't have this issue as you fight Gumshoos there, so this is also the only glitch we'll cover that is exclusive to one of the games. Okay, it's already time for our first battle glitch, which there are a ton of in these games, and this is one of the better ones for sure. So this glitch involves Mimikyu and a Pokemon with the move Rollout. You could technically do this in a singles battle, but that would require the other Pokemon you're facing to be Mimikyu. So I'm just going into a doubles battle with both of them on my team. Once in the doubles battle, the Mimikyu can do anything it wants really, but you'll want to keep the opponent's Pokemon alive for a while, so I ended up just spamming Swords Dance. Anyway, the important step is having the Rollout Pokemon use it to attack Mimikyu. If you don't know, Rollout is a move that locks you in for 5 turns, using Rollout every time, but the damage doubles every time as well. So it'd go ×1, ×2, ×4, ×8, and then ×16 for the final hit. But Mimikyu is the one getting hit, and their signature ability is Disguise, which basically ignores the first hit of damage it takes before the disguise is broken and its head topples over. This specific scenario causes Rollout to glitch, and the damage multiplier will not be incremented on the first time, even though the turn does. So on my second turn when Mimikyu takes his first real hit, since it's technically the second turn of Rollout, it should be ×2 damage, but it's only 1 times. You might see where this is going, but following the end of 5 turns, Rollout will register as over, but since the damage Markiplier got desynced, since the damage multiplier got desynced, the next move you use will automatically apply ×16 its base power, which is absolutely insane. I tried to prove this the best way I could by switching out Mimikyu and bringing in a full HP level 100 Raichu. This is what a normally weak move, Tackle, now does to it. It knocks it out clean in 1 shot. Don't believe me? This is what a Tackle would normally do to it. It only lost 18 HP. But since 18 × 16 is 288, it makes perfect sense that this glitch caused them to faint. Some other interesting things about this glitch and Rollout: if you use Defense Curl, that final turn multiplier will turn up to ×32 their base power, which I don't know if anything could even survive that. And one other neat thing, if you decide to spend that bonus turn using Rollout again, it will still apply the ×16 multiplier, but you won't be locked in for 5 turns again. It considered that Rollout as the 5th turn as well. So yeah, if you're able to set this up in battle, it could cause some serious damage. But considering you need a Mimikyu and a Pokemon with Rollout on the field, and the Rollout has to go all 5 turns, it's probably pretty rare for this to happen. But I still love it as it's hilarious to watch Tackle do so much damage. Want another broken battle strategy? How about guaranteeing you land a one-hit KO move? As ridiculous as it sounds, it's possible. I'm going to show you what's likely the easiest setup for this, and there are other options I believe, but this is the simplest in my opinion. We again need another doubles battle for this, so I have Nidoking and Oranguru. Nidoking works because it's a poison type Pokemon that knows the move Toxic, which even though it's normally only 90% accurate, it always hits if the user is a poison type, and it can learn Horn Drill as a one-hit KO move. We then need a Pokemon with the move Instruct, and Oranguru is the only Pokemon that can learn it, so we're forced to have him as our second. But we also need the Oranguru to outspeed Nidoking so we can use Instruct first, so Trick Room is also necessary for reversing the turn order. Okay, that may have been a little bit confusing, but you need 2 Pokemon, 1 poison type that knows Toxic and can learn a one-hit KO move, and an Oranguru with Instruct that can outspeed the Nidoking either by the extreme difference in levels or with Trick Room. The one-hit KO move can technically be anything you want it to be, but since it'll be a guaranteed hit, it kind of makes the most sense to just do that, even though it could be another move that doesn't already have 100% accuracy either. But anyway, enter a doubles battle with these 2 Pokemon. Once in the battle, we need to do Toxic and Trick Room on the first turn. We do the Toxic first because Instruct will cause the Nidoking to do whatever move it did last, so in this case, Toxic, followed by the move we actually selected on turn 2. So now once Toxic has been used once and Trick Room is activated, it's time for turn 2. This time select Horn Drill, which if you didn't know is only 30% accurate, so less than 1/3 of the time time it will connect, and then instruct with the Oranguru. Now it's time to sit back and watch the glitch unfold. Oranguru will go before Nidoking, use Instruct to cause the Nidoking to use Toxic, which again will always hit since they're a poison type, but then since we're using 2 moves in 1 turn, the game applies the Toxic Never Miss flag to the 1-hit KO Horn Drill, and will land every single time you do this setup. And when I say every single time, I mean without fail. Even if the Pokemon is dug underground, in the middle of Dig or Fly, or anything else, the Pokemon cannot escape what's coming. This is also why I said you might as well use Horn Drill as the guaranteed move, as you could use another move that has a chance to hit, but why would you? Why wouldn't you just pick a move that skips all the fluff and auto one-shots them? So yeah, another pretty specific scenario, but honestly is more likely to be pulled off than the rollout one, as you really just need the Pokemon to survive 2 turns. So have fun in your next battle against your friend. They'll think you're cheating with how accurate those Horn Drills are. Alright, this one's pretty funny and pretty easy to trigger. To quote my last video on Pokemon Gen 3 glitches, Pokemon evolve. Yes, I know. Thank you. Okay, but seriously, when a Pokemon evolves, you're taken to this cutscene sequence where you can watch your current Pokemon transform into their next stage. But I want you to pay really close attention to the beginning part of these cutscenes, specifically in the top left corner of the main screen. Did you catch it? Well, if you didn't, right as the cutscene starts and the screen is fading in, there is a frame or two where you can literally see the Pokemon you are about to become. Yeah, so in this first case, Torracat is evolving. You can literally see Wolfie VGC's favorite Pokemon of all time standing there in the top left. It's pretty funny, and since knowing this, I can't help but watch it every single time I see this evolution cutscene now. My best guess is the game tries to load the model of the next stage prior to the cutscene, so it has access to it right away when you come out of this glowing orb, but it does so a frame later than it should, so you're able to see it as the black is fading out. To my knowledge, this happens every single time you watch this evolution cutscene, whether it be from leveling up or using an item. It always seems to show up. Pokemon seems to have a running history of showing models a frame before they're supposed to, and I know I've used this example multiple times in past videos, but the Scarlet and Violet version is still so funny to me. As cutscenes are fading out in those games, NPCs and other Pokemon models will revert back to their default T-pose a frame before the screen fully goes black. So it's nice to go back to older games and see the same dang thing happen here too. So start staring at the top left corner when evolutions are happening in this game, as it literally gives you a sneak peek preview of the Pokemon you are about to own. Okay, now onto an interesting one involving Pokemon cries. As you probably know, each Pokemon has its own unique and identifiable cry, like Regirock for example.
Okay, Christ.
Well, even though each Pokemon usually only has one cry, Pokemon also come in different forms, meaning it's the same Pokemon but with a different look, typing, or moves. One example is Oricorio, who has 4 forms, the default Bailey, Pom-Pom, Pow, and Sensu. While it's technically the same Pokemon, each of the forms have their own unique cry. I want you to pay close attention to each of them and see how they are different. Pay special attention to the default Ballet cry on the first red one, as we're going to hear it a lot in a moment. So now that you've heard them and can tell that they differ between forms, it's time to actually talk about the glitch. Keep the menu open and go into Pokemon Refresh, where you can pet and feed the Pokemon in your party. When starting, you'll hear the Pokemon's cry pretty much right away, which you would expect to match the Pokemon and its form. However, this glitch is that the first cry it makes will always be the Pokemon's default form. I'll play the audio here in a second, but when I switch and throw out any other of the Oricorio forms, they'll all play the cry of the default Ballet one. Have a listen as I throw each one of them out. So yeah, not really sure why it happens, but I guess the game doesn't apply the form variations to the cry until after they've been thrown out and play the cry once. Every time after the initial one of throwing them out will always play the correct cry, just not the first time. Very interesting, and can be done with any other Pokemon that have form-specific cries when throwing them into Pokemon Refresh. While on the topic of Pokemon forms, next up is a glitch that really doesn't help you at all, and is more of a programming error. Yay! We have access to the legendary genies in these games, those being Thundurus, Landorus, and Tornadus, which also all have Incarnate and Therian forms, changing the way they look, their cry, and some of their stats. Well, there was an oversight with the TM move Smart Strike, a Steel-type move that can be learned by Thundurus, but only in its incarnate form, which is very odd considering, yes, there are some moves that only Thundurus can learn but not Landorus or Tornadus, and vice versa, where some can't learn what others can. But for every other TM, it doesn't matter what form they're in. Only Smart Strike for some reason. As you can see, it's only letting me teach Incarnate Thundurus the move, and the Therian says unavailable. Now, can you literally teach Thundurus Incarnate Smart Strike, and then use the reveal glass to change the form to Therian? Yeah. So this has to be a programming error that I just didn't notice. So now we, the players, have to spend an extra 15 seconds switching forms just to teach it Smart Strike. Yay. One more glitch involving forms, and this has gotta be the best one, and honestly one of the most interesting glitches this game has in general. So I'm sure you're familiar with forms at this point. Well, Giratina has two of them. Their default altered form, which is when it has legs, and its origin form, when it's a flying snake. You can change forms by giving it the Grisius Orb to hold. It will then be in its origin form while holding it. Well, funny enough, and I really don't understand how this works, if you swap the orb for different colors of nectar, some very weird things start to happen. Starting off with a normal one, if you swap the orb for red nectar, it will do what you expect and return it to its altered form. Makes sense, right? Well, switch it back to the orb again so it's back in its origin form, and this time swap it out for yellow nectar. This time it will play the transformation noise, and you can see that purple puff of smoke, but it stayed in its origin form. Like, even if I back out and look at the summary, it's still in its origin form, even without the required Grisius Orb. Again, mind you, if I were to give it yellow nectar without holding anything before, it behaves like it should and it stays in its altered form. Only when I swap it does this happen. But trust me, it gets weirder. If you start off by holding the orb like normal, and then swap it for either pink or purple nectar, it will return back to its expected altered form, but Giratina sounds a little different now. As you might be able to tell, this is Rotom's cry. Giving them the pink or purple nectar gives Giratina Rotom's cry. I have zero idea how this happens or why any of these nectars cause the effects that they do. For context, the nectars are only supposed to be used with Oricorio to change between the 4 forms, hence why there are 4 nectars. So why on earth does this affect Giratina? I really have no clue. The only resemblance is that these items both change the forms of Pokemon, but the whole thing is just very weird where you have to already be holding the Grisius Orb prior to swapping it for the nectar. But yeah, even in battles, Giratina will now sound like Rotom. This is incredibly odd to me, but still very cool. I really like how I can keep it in its origin form while holding something other than the orb, and changing a Pokemon's cry to Rotom is just nuts. How about next we break the move Trick Room? As we talked about before, Trick Room is a move that essentially reverses the turn order, as now Pokemon with lower speed go first and faster ones last. This is normally what happens on paper, but fun fact, if your Pokemon is just too fast, I guess it just somehow breaks out of Trick Room because it still goes first. 1809 is the magic number we need to have a Pokemon speed be at to do this. So I chose Speed Form Deoxys, but I believe there are other Pokemon that can reach 1809 as well. My level 100 Deoxys is timid nature and has perfect speed EVs and IVs, bringing it up to a total base speed stat of 504. So I paired it with agility, meaning in 3 uses it would bring it to +6, giving it essentially ×4 its base, which comes out to a grand total of 2016, which I guess is higher than the Trick Room limit. So here was the turn prior to breaking out. You can see here I have +4 speed from using 2 agilities, and Trick Room is activated, which causes all the slower Pokemon to go first, with my Deoxys finally using its last agility last. So now I'm at +6, which should mean with Trick Room that I go even more last, but I end up just going first, like Trick Room was not even active. But then you see the Happiny go before my level 92 Oranguru, so Trick Room is clearly still up. So yeah, I have no idea why Trick Room has a limit, maybe it doesn't and the 1809 speed barrier is some other issue. I have no idea. But if you have an insanely fast Pokemon like Deoxys, and your opponent is a Trick Room dependent team, maybe you can catch them off guard with this. It's a pretty scary thing knowing Pokemon could just ignore moves like this. And don't worry, this isn't just a glitch in Sun and Moon, it's also in Black and White, X and Y, and even Sword and Shield. So be careful if you're battling super fast Pokemon in one of those games. Okay, another battle glitch, and since Deoxys got such an advantage last time, we're gonna punish him for this one. So the choice items, choice band, choice scarf, and choice specs all force the Pokemon to be locked into whatever move they use first. Trying to do another move afterwards will block you completely. However, there are moves and abilities that prevent the use of held items. One such move is what I have on my Palisand here, Embargo, which blocks items for 5 turns. So going into a double battle here, turn 1 I use Psychic, and since I'm holding a choice scarf, I should be locked into it, but then use Embargo onto the Deoxys. So now turn 2, which is turn 1 of 5 with Embargo, I'm allowed to select other moves, but they will always just fail. So it gives the illusion that I can pick a different move, but the choice scarf is still like half applied, and any other move other than Psychic will fail. So I stall out a few turns and wait for the Embargo to end, which effectively gives me my choice scarf back, but still keeps me locked into Psychic and even comes up with the text that the scarf prevents any other moves. So the whole situation is just really weird, and you would think that blocking held items would allow me to use other moves, but they all fail. And then once I regain my choice item, it still locks me into the move I used on turn 1. Really a strange effect overall, so hopefully you don't run into Pokemon with either the ability Klutz or someone that knows moves like Embargo or Magic Room, as you will permanently be stuck using that move regardless. Okay, this is probably the most useful glitch overall, as we're able to level up Pokemon, get free rare items, and other goodies in a matter of minutes. The whole thing revolves around Pokepelago, which is a side micromanaging game you can play within Sun and Moon. Each of the 5 islands have some special thing you can do on them. One lets you discover wild Pokemon that appear on the island and collect beans. Second lets you plant berries that double when they're fully grown. Third is a cave exploration island that can return you rare expensive items or other useful ones. Fourth is basically free XP you can use to level up your Pokemon that you leave in there, and the last is a spa that you can place regular Pokemon in to increase friendship, or if you leave eggs, you can get them to hatch in bulk. So all the items are pretty unique and net you money, levels, berries, and other goods. But the catch is that it's time-based, meaning you have to wait around while the Pokemon screw around on the islands. Well, you might see where we're going with this, but you can cheese this whole time thing very easily by changing your system's date and time. So start by loading up your islands with Pokemons, beans, and berries, and then back out and save your game. We then need to close the game and return to the 3DS home menu. But between you and me, I'm not actually on real 3DS hardware, and in fact using a piece of software that rhymes with Ritra. So please ignore the fact that this says Alpha Sapphire, pretend it says Pokemon Moon. Ooh. Okay. Go to your system settings, other settings, date and time, and then today's date. Now back when this glitch was first discovered, people would set their times back to January 31st, 2017, and you can do that too if you want, but it also works if you just change your date to 1 day before a new month from whatever the current date is. It doesn't have to be this, it just has to roll over to a new month. But what does matter is your time. We need to set this to either 23:58 or 23:59. This one is more of a personal preference. We basically need to load back into our game and the save file before it switches over to midnight. So whether you want to give yourself 2 minutes or 1 is really up to you. It may just mean more waiting. Anyway, now from this point, we can back out of this and quickly go back into our save file of Pokemon Moon. So now just mash A through the title screen and load up your save and wait until the clock switches over to midnight the next day. You can easily check this by clicking on save and looking what time it says, checking your home menu of your real 3DS, or setting a stopwatch from when you set the time to 1 or 2 minutes depending on which you did. Once it switches over days, go into your Pokemon Pelago, and boom, everything will be finished and ready for you to reap the benefits. My Pokemon leveled up, I got some rare items from the cave, got double the amount of berries I started with, and my Pokemon have a higher friendship with me now. Hooray! This also means we can just redo these steps and you have new rewards within a few minutes, or however fast you can set everything and reset your date and time. So while it's not really a glitch because we're just manipulating the date, it's still a very useful exploit to know. I didn't do this a crazy amount of times, but from what I read about online, you can realistically get a Pokemon from level 60 to 100 in about an hour. And obviously, if you were doing lower level Pokemon, it takes less XP to level up, so it would be even faster. You just have to get good at repeating these steps over and over. Now, like you saw earlier, this is only possible on versions 1.0 and 1.1 of the game. But again, if you really care about doing this, you can always delete the update data off your 3DS, do this glitch a bunch until you're good, and then re-download the update. But I've been on 1.0 this whole time, so I don't really have to worry about that. But yeah, likely the most useful glitch as the rewards are so nice for only taking a few minutes. Definitely try this one out if you're still into Sun and Moon and need to train up Pokemon quickly. So this is definitely one of the weirder ones and turned out to be way more interesting than I thought. So one aspect of Sun and Moon that always stuck out to me graphically were the model outlines. Characters like yourself, NPCs, and Pokemon have really good looking models, but you can also quickly notice these gray outlines. They usually appear around the outer edges of models, I guess to help distinct the character from the background environment, but I always thought they were a little too much. Well, there's actually a few square feet where you can disable them. Fly on over to the Aether Paradise and head inside. We need to get to floor B1F, the docks area, so just run straight to the elevator and select that floor. Just over on the left side is this stack of crates. They're normally just decoration, but stand close to them in the gap between the left and right ones. For some reason, this causes your character's outline to completely disappear, leaving us with a way better looking model. Look how smooth and vibrant it looks without all those gray lines everywhere. As you might also be able to notice, there seems to be this dark line in line with the topmost part of the crates. This seems to be like where the threshold is where the game starts rendering the outlines, as you can sort of stand in the middle and get a mix of outlines and smoothness. This was so cool looking to me, and it's crazy how much of a difference they make. To my knowledge, this is the only place I know of that does this. I believe it's just because when you get close to the crates, the game thinks you're hidden from the camera, so it stops drawing the outlines to improve performance. I guess. I don't know. But since there is a visible gap between the crates, we get to see what really happens when you go behind objects. Still, I think it's super neat and really makes me wish the game never had outlines to begin with. There are cheat codes you can add to permanently turn them off, and I even covered this in my Sun and Moon modding video from 4 years ago. My god, I've been doing this a while. But yeah, a tiny pocket that can magically improve the visuals of this game. But I don't know, maybe there are people out there that like these big outlines. Let me know. On the topic of weird graphical glitches you can do by standing in a specific spot in a specific location, I should coin that term. This one isn't as good as removing outlines, but I'ma still show it. We need to go to Pony Island for this one, so fly into Seafolk Village and head up into the Pony Wilds. The location is this elevated surface off to the right side of the wilds with this tree. Walk up the little slope and past the tree on the right. If you stand or walk over a specific spot, you may notice the shadow below the tree flickers and disappears for a brief moment. Carefully inching your steps can cause it to flicker slower, or even stay like half disappeared if you stand in just the right spot. Yes, this is it. So next time you find yourself in the Pony Wilds, I highly recommend slightly considering maybe coming over to this tree and trying it out for yourself. Well, let's keep tying glitches into each other, shall we? Since we're already on Pony Island, we now need to head to the vast Pony Canyon trial site where you fight Totem Komodo. We don't need to fight them or anything, just head to the trial site inside of this cave. When stepping inside, you'll notice that there really isn't any music playing, just ambient noise of winds gusting through. Well, this audio track seems to differ from any other one in the game. If we open up our menu and select any option, the noise completely disappears, leaving us with only the sounds of the menu. It's kind of creepy, as you normally always have some music or sound playing, but now we're just left alone with our thoughts here. What a scary place that is. Anyway, you could get some use out of this. Since there are no other noises playing, you could use this to capture sounds of Pokemon's cry you have in your party, so could maybe be useful for you fellow content creators out there. But other than that, it's just strange that this is the only place in the game that does this. I tried checking out some of the other trial sites, but they seem to behave just fine. It's just this one for some reason. This battle one is kinda pointless and is just more of a visual thing. It involves the move Baton Pass and the ability Own Tempo. Baton Pass is a move that allows you to switch out Pokemon with another while passing on stat changes and status conditions like Confusion and Perish Song. But Own Tempo is an ability that lets Pokemon ignore Confusion. So what happens if a Pokemon Baton passes Confusion onto a Pokemon with Own Tempo? I set this up by using Swagger on my own Pokemon, getting it confused, and then Baton passing with it. When Slowbro came in, the turn continued with Volbeat using Leer. Then finally the ability tag came on screen saying Slowbro snapped out of Confusion. But yeah, that's really it. It just delays this message popping up until after another Pokemon takes their turn. When I was first looking into this glitch, I thought it meant that the confusion would stay for one of Slowbro's turns, then go away, but nope, it's a pretty insignificant visual effect that only gets delayed by a turn. I even tried doing it in a singles battle where the other Pokemon went first. This time I was able to select a move, but even then before going, it popped up and cleared my confusion before I could attack. So I tried my hardest to make this glitch do something interesting, even if it meant giving a Pokemon with Own Tempo confusion, but no dice. Just a small glitch that you may not even notice happening while playing. This next one is another that you really don't want happening, but thankfully is only a glitch on version 1.0 of the game. To quote my last video on Pokemon Gen 3 glitches, and also earlier in this video, Pokemon evolve. Oh my god, thank you, you're too kind. But another mechanic of evolution is the ability to learn new moves. Take Butterfree, for example. They learn certain moves at certain levels, but also learn Gust when they evolve into Butterfree. And this could be at any level, really. However, watch what happens when I use a rare candy to level up this Metapod from level 10 to 11. This causes them to start evolving into Butterfree, so on paper, according to this list, they should try and learn both Gust, since it's an evolution move, and Confusion since they're level 11. However, following the cutscene, they will only try to learn Gust. Confusion never gets brought up, and I can prove that they were supposed to learn Confusion too by leveling up this already evolved Butterfree from 10 to 11. See, they try and learn it. So something with the evolution move overrode them trying to learn Confusion. This glitch does only affect moves that the Pokemon also learn at level 1, which checks out as Butterfree could learn it at level 1 along with Gust. And you can, I guess, correct the glitch by just going to the move reminder, and we'll see Confusion as an option there, but it'll cost you 1 heart scale for this error. So a pretty specific scenario to even trigger this glitch, but I'm sure it's happened to at least one of you watching, even if you didn't notice it. This is one of the more interesting visual glitches you can get in battle, turning a Pokemon completely invisible. It's kind of a unique setup. We need a Pokemon with Skydrop that has to faint after using the move. So I found that having the Skydrop user hold a life orb while on low HP was a good way to achieve this. And one last thing before entering the battle, go into your options and set battle effects to off. This is the main component to the setup, and you'll see why in a minute. So now in battle with your Pokemon on low HP, use Skydrop on a Pokemon. First turn they'll get thrown up into the air, but since we have the battle effects off, they'll just kind of turn invisible. Then do whatever on the second turn and wait for the Skydrop to happen. You'll see that the target starts losing HP, but you still can't see either of them. The life orb then kicks in pretty quickly and the Skydrop user dropped to 0. This feint basically interrupts the game, making the other Pokemon visible again and plays out the fainting sequence. Following this, the other Pokemon is still alive, but just invisible. It's funny to watch the camera pan around in between turns, just zooming in and out on nothing. In a doubles battle, you can also knock out the other Pokemon, leaving you with just your Pokemon visible. You would think this battle is over just by looking at the screen, but the Krokorok is still standing. They will stay this way for the rest of battle, even when getting hit or doing attacks of their own. The only time you will see the Pokemon again is when they play their fainting animation. So really just a visual thing, doesn't change much about the actual battle itself, but I still enjoyed watching the battle play out with an invisible Pokemon. So for you people who turn battle effects off, weirdos, try this one out. Okay, next isn't even really a glitch, just a blatant mistake by the developers. Memento is a move that causes the user to lose all of its HP, but at the cost of harshly lowering the target's attack and special attack. However, if we activate our Z power to use Z Memento, it says its special effect is that it restores the replacement's HP. Even when in the middle of using the move, it will specifically say, Muck will restore its replacement's HP using its Z power. So after this whole fancy cutscene finishes and Muck faints, you'll notice that my Decidueye has 171 HP prior to switching in, so how much does Z Memento heal from the replacement, like it said it was going to do? None. Nada. The effect just never triggers, and I'm still on 171 HP. Great. What was the point of that then? This luckily did get fixed in later updates, and it did start restoring HP like it should have, but us day oneers just had to live with this glitch for a while. So is this one of those glitches you should delete your update data for? Absolutely not. But it's still neat to see that the devs messed up the coding somewhere along the way, because this Z move does absolutely nothing. Another not so fun thing can happen with Curse. Given a very specific scenario, it's possible to use the ghost type version of Curse on yourself. You would need a Pokemon with the ability Protean that can also learn Curse. This isn't normally possible with any Pokemon, and the only way of doing that is having a Pokemon that knows Curse get skill swapped with another Pokemon that has Protean. Since this is a demonstration, I just forced my Greninja who has the Protean ability to also learn the move Curse, which again isn't normally possible, but just pretend I went through the process of finding an NPC with the ability Protean and skill swapping it. Anyway, Protean is an ability that changes the user's type to whatever type the move that they're using is. So in this case, Curse is a ghost type move, so my Greninja would change into ghost type prior to using it. However, as you may know, Curse does things differently depending on if they're ghost type or not. As shown here, I'm in another battle with two Pokemon that know Curse. One is a ghost type and one is not. The ghost type is forced to target any other Pokemon but themselves, which also lowers their own HP by half and places a curse on the target, causing them to slowly lose HP at the end of every turn. However, a non-ghost user is forced to only target themselves, which causes their speed to drop but raises their attack and defense. So keep these differences in mind as we go back to our Protean Greninja with Curse. You'll see that we're forced to target ourselves, which is technically correct as we aren't currently a ghost type, but then when I use the move, Protean kicks in and we turn into a ghost type, causing us to lose half of our own HP, then place the curse on ourselves, effectively losing 75% of our own HP in a single turn with no real benefits. Nice, great. Awesome. So basically just an oversight with how you're forced to select a target prior to the available targets list updating mid-turn by you switching to ghost type. This is also a super specific scenario we'd have to skill swap Protean onto a Pokemon that already knows Curse, so it's likely that 99.9% of you would never experience this without going out of your way to do so. If you watched my Pokemon X and Y glitch video, you may remember this one, as it's a glitch in Gens 5 and 6 as well. As you may know, Pokemon can hold certain berries and berry juice, and if their HP falls below half, they will pull it out and eat it to restore some HP. Well, there's a specific yet common scenario where the game ignores this entirely: confusion. If a Pokemon holding one of these berries gets confused, attacks themselves, and drops their own HP below half, the berry will not activate, leaving us more vulnerable. So the game seems to only recognize this if another Pokemon attacks them. It can't be themselves. You do a pretty decent amount of damage each time you hit yourself, so if you're really unlucky, you could knock yourself out completely without the berry ever activating. But most of the time, it'll still leave you vulnerable and could even be the difference why you don't survive a turn. This is more of a fun visual one. There are a few different effects you can trigger when in battles, such as weather and terrain effects. But if the terrain effect wears off before the weather, it mistakenly alters the background when outdoors. I did this by using Tapu Koko and a Togekiss. When the battle first starts, Tapu Koko's ability auto-sets electric terrain, and the whole field turns yellow. Then I wait a turn before using Rain Dance with Togekiss. So now electric terrain will wear off before the rain. When this happens a few turns later, the terrain will clear and the weather will go back to sunny, even though the rain is still going. I guess the game doesn't consider it to be possible to have both up at the same time, so it goes from electric terrain back to default weather of sunny. But the rain is still coming down, creating this unique effect. For reference, if you just use Rain Dance, the sky turns gray and cloudy like you see here. So in theory, when the terrain wears off, it should go to this weather, but the overlapping field effects creates this weird visual bug. Again, the effects of Rain Dance are still active, we just get to battle in this nice sun shower instead. Here's an interesting one exclusive to Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon involving Dittos turning into humans. You do have to be in a specific spot in the story though, roughly about 10 hours into the game. You need to reach the second island, Akala, complete the 3 trials of water, fire, and grass, and take on the grand trial of beating Kahuna Olivia. Then, finally, a side quest of the Ditto 5 will be available in Koni City. You can start it by talking to the police officer just outside the city at the station, who's a Ditto. This starts this whole side quest of finding other humans that Ditto transformed into, and we get a weirdly big chunk of change for doing so. Well, first we have to take down this herb seller Ditto outside the photo club. Pay close attention to what happens after the battle though. You'll see the Ditto is gone and the real herb seller walks back into his position. This is important, as we'll be manipulating this for the next NPC, so the next one in the order is luckily the one we need for the glitch. It takes place in this restaurant across from the Pokemon Center. Inside, the Ditto is the chef standing in the back behind the counter, but we need to talk to him from a specific spot. Basically, we just need to be blocking the 2 tables behind us, as that's where the real chef will run through when we defeat the Ditto. There's some leeway with this, so just make sure you're standing relatively in the middle of the tables here. Talk to the Ditto and start the battle. Then, following the battle, the chef will try and run down this aisle and completely be blocked by you, resulting in this animation looping over and over again. In fact, it stays like this for 30 seconds until the game luckily corrects itself, presents the dialogue, and carries on like normal, placing the chef behind the counter again. If we go back and stand off to the side this time, like the game expects you to, you'll see that the chef basically just walks down to the spot you were standing in, gives us his little speech, and then teleports behind the counter anyway. So us standing in this spot completely blocks him, resulting in this funny looking scene. I'm just glad they had something in place to autocorrect NPCs getting stuck, or this would have completely soft locked the game, forcing players to reset from their last save. So it's a win-win. We get a cool glitch, and the game isn't broken because of it. Okay, this one kinda sucks, but luckily is only a glitch on version 1.0 of the game. Later updates correct this pretty annoying bug. And what is that, you ask? The game outright deleting moves off of your Pokemon. This can happen to any Pokemon if they don't have 4 moves already. Take a look at these Pokemon I have. They're low level and only have 1, 2, or 3 moves. So in theory, if I try and teach them a new move, it should go into the bottom available slot, right? Wrong. Visit any move tutor on any of the island's beaches. Here you can exchange BP for some nice moves. As you can see, I'm trying to teach my Rockruff Ironhead, which if you remember is level 1 and only knows tackle. So again, you would think Ironhead would take the second move slot and leave tackle alone, right? Wrong. For some reason, it replaced tackle, and now I'm just left with Ironhead. So I guess what's happening is anytime you use one of these move tutors, if your Pokemon does not have 4 moves already, it mistakenly overwrites the first move with the new one. I'll show some more examples now, but this happens with all of the move tutors on all of the island's beaches, and is an absolute pain if you really just wanted to teach it a new move. If your Pokemon does already have 4 moves, it does the usual thing where it asks which move you'd like to delete, so we're all good there. It's only the lower level Mons that don't know 4 already. Like I said, this happens with all the move tutors, including the one at the battle tree, but does not glitch for the move reminders. These will always behave correctly and add the move to one of the empty slots like it's supposed to. Luckily, like I said, this was only a thing on version 1.0 of the game, so this was corrected pretty quickly. But if you're on the base version, just be careful of this or you could accidentally delete a move. While on the topic of move tutors, I wanted to quickly talk about an error with the pledge moves in the special tutor in the Hawali City Mall. Here you can teach different Pokemon the pledge moves of water, fire, and grass. This usually depends on the Pokemon in which they can learn. Rowlet, for example, can learn Grass Pledge. However, the Pokemon Silvally is a weird case. According to Bulbapedia, Silvally is programmed to be able to learn all 3 pledge moves. However, the move tutor only offers Grass Pledge, not Fire Pledge or Water Pledge. We can confirm this by talking to the tutor and trying to teach Silvally the pledge moves. She'll give you Grass Pledge automatically without a real choice, and if you talk to them and try again, it just says learned, with no option to change which pledge move you have or anything else. So regardless of the fact that they can technically learn Water or Fire Pledge, there's no legitimate way to do so. This was also a thing in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I even talked about it in that glitch video. So maybe you could still hack the Pokemon in and have them pass the legitimate test for online, but there is no official way to do so. Alright, this is a really cool one, and it's probably one of my favorites in this game. It involves Ash's Greninja and a Ditto. Getting Ash's Greninja is only possible if you play the Sun and Moon demo, complete it, and then transfer it into a full copy of the game. It has the special ability Battle Bond, and upon defeating a Pokemon will transform it into this exclusive form. This also changes the way the move Water Shuriken behaves, switching from hitting a target 2 to 5 times to locked into 3 times. However, Ditto causes some interesting problems if you transform into the Greninja while it's in this form. The Battle Bond ability won't be activated correctly, meaning you get the stat boost from it, but you still hit 2 to 5 times, which again causes some very weird effects. For starters, you'll see here that I hit the Ninetales 3 times, got it low, then when it goes to hit a 4th time, which would knock it out, it immediately cuts to them fainting, not even finishing the attack animation or the HP going down. I promise I did not alter or cut the footage in any way here. This is just what happens for some reason. Then, as more proof I guess, you'll see here that I only hit 2 times, which again shouldn't be possible due to the Ash Greninja ability of locking the move into 3 hits. But don't worry, it gets weirder. This time, my Ditto hitting 4 times did not knock out the Ninetales and immediately causes all the Pokemon besides the Dittoed Greninja to disappear. Like no other Pokemon are visible now. This was unfortunately corrected pretty quickly by my other Greninja using a move and knocking out their Pokemon, but was still incredibly odd looking. Again, this is not edited in any way, this is the raw footage without any cuts. My guess is the game was trying to pan back to that camera angle of Greninja attacking, but just like before, it got interrupted and the game never got to load the other Pokemon's models back in. I tried it again, this time not attacking with the real Greninja, and I got a slightly better result. They all turned invisible again, but the Ninetales came back when it used a move, leaving my other Greninja still invisible. So it seems like the other Pokemon will stay hidden until they go to use a move, triggering a new animation with them, which brings their model back. But hey, my other Greninja is still invisible and will stay that way until they attack again. So in theory, all the other Pokemon could remain invisible if they move before the Ditto Greninja triggers this glitch. But anyway, this is a real cool glitch overall, being able to mess with a very unique and exclusive Pokemon, Ash's Greninja. Due to the special state its ability creates, it seems like all the possible side effects were not fully tested, so this is the result. Since we're already talking about Ash's Pokemon, let's look at another cool glitch involving Partner Cap Pikachu. This Pikachu is sporting a partner cap similar to Ash's. This was a promotional Pokemon distributed via a QR code for the release of the movie Pokemon the Movie, I Choose You, back in 2017. However, the QR code still seems to work, meaning you can still redeem it and get this special Pikachu. All you gotta do is scan the QR code, then talk to this delivery man in Pikachu Valley. Now this is where the glitch comes into play. This partner cat Pikachu is supposed to be shiny locked, meaning it should never be possible to get a shiny version of this Pokemon. This is a common thing with legendaries and some mythical Pokemon, but also just for this little guy. However, the developers goofed and it is technically possible to receive a shiny version. You just have to save prior to talking to the NPC, obtain the Pikachu, then reset if it's not shiny. However, you should also know that the shiny version is not anything special, as there's no shiny model programmed into the game for this Pikachu. So the only visible way to know if it is shiny is having this red star on the summary screen, and it will also play the shiny sparkle animation when entering battle. So it's really up to you if you think this is worth it to spend the likely tens of maybe hundreds of hours it'll take resetting for a Pokemon that does not even look shiny. But due to the obscure method it takes to obtain this Pokemon to begin with, scanning a QR code and visiting this NPC, it also makes this Pikachu one of the rarest shinies in Pokemon history, as you cannot redeem this QR code multiple times per save, so you'd have to make a new save if you really wanted to own this Pikachu, and you had to reset for it. On top of the unique fact that it's supposed to be shiny locked, but due to the way the game determines a shiny, it's also a glitched shiny. So really cool overall, and a unique challenge for some of you out there. Maybe someone watching this video has already obtained one, so if so, let me know if you have. Okay, this might be one of the easiest battle glitches to do in the entire game, as there's very minimal setup required. All we need is a Pokemon that knows the move or can learn the move Ion Deluge. Deluge, I don't know. Which, there's about 10 Pokemon that can learn it. Anyway, nothing else really matters, so head into a battle with that Pokemon. From this point, there is no other setup needed. Simply use the move. Its description reads, the user disperses electricity charged particles, which changes normal type moves to electric type moves. Seems kinda sweet, right? Well, go ahead and use it, and you'll notice, oh, it failed. Alright, let's try again. When the move oh, dang, again. Okay, well, let's try using our Z power. Surely that ensures that it doesn't oh my god. Yes, if you couldn't tell already, this magical move just always fails, no matter the scenario. A trainer battle, a wild Pokemon battle, and anything in between. This move will never work. For those of you saying that this move has worked before for you, you must have updated the game, as it's only an error on version 1.0. It's kind of concerning that the devs made this big of an error when creating this new move, and even looking at the big picture, it is not a new move, as it was introduced in X and Y, but wasn't in Gen 7 until Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So I mean, yeah, there's a chance the playtesters just didn't try using this move, or assumed it failed for some other unknown reason, but to my knowledge, there is no way to get this move to work unless you update the game. Even using the Z power says it would raise its special attack, and I would even take just the stat boost at this point, but nope, fails every single time. So I guess not really a glitch, but it's still a pretty crazy mistake. Alright, on the topic of programming errors, I'll be honest, this is one of the more boring ones from my Sun and Moon video, but I still wanted to talk about it, as it's technically a glitch in this game too. We have access to Thundurus, Landorus, and Tornadus, also known as... Alright, listen, yes, their official name is the Forces of Nature, but I myself, along with many other friends, YouTubers, and internet posts sometimes refer to them as legendary genies. Come on, they got the whole arms crossed thing, floating on clouds. I mean, Thundurus looks pretty damn similar to the genie from Aladdin. But anyway, we are not here to argue. But speaking of Thundurus, there's a pretty interesting quirk with the TM Smart Strike. Obviously, some TMs can be learned by certain Pokemon. However, even though these three genies have two forms, the default Incarnate and their Therian versions, these don't change the typings of them or anything, just shifts their stats around a little. But anyway, it would make sense that Thundurus can't learn some TMs that Landorus could, for example. However, Smart Strike is an enigma, as Incarnate Thundurus can learn it, but not the Therian form. It just says it's incompatible. So this is just a blatant error by the devs, as you can just teach Incarnate Thundurus Smart Strike and then use the reveal glass to change it to Therian, giving it a technically illegal move. The only real argument you can make as to why this is the case is that Smart Strike is a physical attacking move and Incarnate Thundurus is a stronger physical attacker while Therian is special attacking, but 1, Incarnate still has higher special attack than physical, Therian's is just higher, and 2, this is the only TM in the entire game that this happens with. I'm pretty confident I went through every single one. If other TMs did this for the other genies, okay, fair enough. It still doesn't make sense since you can just use the reveal glass, making it pointless anyway, but Smart Strike is the only one. Just a very weird mistake overall, and yes, I still will be calling them the legendary genies. Staying with the programming errors once more, this is one of those glitches that carried over from Sun and Moon as well, as it takes place during a totem Pokemon fight. During the first trial on Route 2, you'll take on your first trial and totem Pokemon battle. Depending on whether you're playing Ultra Sun or Ultra Moon, you will fight a Gumshoos or an Alolan Raticate. While visually they are completely different Pokemon, the cutscene of them appearing will always play Gumshoos cry, regardless of the game you are on. Have a listen. While it may not be obvious right away, I'm going to play what both Gumshoos and Alolan Raticate normally sound like. So yeah, not really a glitch and just more of a mistake by the devs. Since this is a thing in both Sun and Moon and the Ultras, my long shot conspiracy is that they started development by creating Pokemon Sun, built out all the encounters and everything, then they switched to making Moon, replacing all the spawns, cutscenes, and everything else. And I guess this cutscene of the first totem Pokemon just got mistakenly glossed over. Not really a huge deal regardless, but I still thought it was interesting. You could make the argument that they knew about this and still just kept it in the Ultra versions, but this is the only time in any of the cutscenes that a Pokemon will play a different cry than their own. So this might be one of the worst glitches these games have to offer, as it can really screw over players. And when does this take place, you ask? Not even 10 minutes into the game, when you're picking your starter Pokemon. Yes, that's right, picking your starter. This glitch can occur, and it's pretty annoying because the game has a chance to just crash completely. So the only setup this glitch involves is picking Litten as your starter. That's it. For some reason, there's a fairly decent chance your game will be stuck on a black screen following the cutscene of you selecting Litten and holding them up in your arms. Now I will say, I couldn't get this crash myself, maybe it's because I'm playing on an emulator, but I'll simulate on screen what you would see. Nothing. The cutscene fades and just nothing happens after that. The music will still play in the background, but that is it. As for the causes of this, I have no idea. There doesn't seem to be a consistent way to trigger it. I found a YouTube video showing off the crash, and in the comments there are even more people saying that they experienced this on the game's launch. Some of them saying it happened multiple times when picking Litten. Interestingly, one person reported that if they pick a male trainer, there was no problem picking the flaming cat, but as soon as they switch to a female trainer, boom, the game crashes. I even tried myself, picking the same exact female character shown in the video, but it still didn't happen for me. So I'm not exactly sure how often or what your chances are that it will crash, but there are 72 comments on this one video alone, and just about all of them are saying how it happened to them too. So it seems kinda common. Maybe it's just the game's way of punishing you for picking Litten instead of Rowlet. Luckily, this was only a glitch on version 1.0 of the game, but it's honestly crazy that a game crash occurs this often when picking your starter 10 minutes into the game. On top of that, since it is the start of the game, there's a good chance that some players still haven't saved the game for the first time. So imagine you're all excited to sit down with a brand new Pokemon game, you set your nickname, watch all the intro cutscenes, finally to pick your starter, and you're just stuck, forced to close and restart the game from the beginning again, just for it to maybe happen again back to back. Really sets the tone for some players' first experience of Gen 7. Again, I have no clue what the percent chance of this happening is. I tried a few times myself and it never happened, but I'm sure one of you out there watching this has had this happen to them. If it did, please let me know in the comments, as I'm very curious as to how often it really occurred. Okay, it's time for a fan favorite from the OG Sun and Moon video, turning a Giratina into a Rotom. For those unfamiliar, with a very odd setup, it's possible to give Giratina Rotom's cry. Don't believe me? So the setup is quite easy, and if you only want to do the cry swap part, you only need Giratina's signature Grisius Orb and then pink or purple nectar. But before we show that one, I want to cover some less interesting side effects if you use the other nectars. So start off by having Giratina holding the Grisius Orb so it's in its origin form, then swapping the item for red nectar. It's important when doing these that you swap the held items. You can't just remove one and then give them a different item. Anyway, for the red nectar, it doesn't actually do anything special, it just turns it back to its default altered form. But I wanted to show that as a base because all the other nectars do something. So swap the item back to the Grisius Orb and this time switch it with yellow nectar. You'd think nothing special happened as the transformation starts to play out, but if you notice, it stays in its origin form, which is odd on its own as you now have an origin form Giratina without holding the normally required Grisius Orb. So we're getting somewhere with that nectar, but it's time for the main event. Start again by holding the Grisius Orb and swapping it for pink or purple nectar. Doesn't matter. The transformation animation will play, returning it to its altered form, but bear with me and back out to check its summary. Yes, that's right. For some reason, this changes Giratina's cry to Rotom's. You can even compare the two if you would like. To my knowledge, Giratina will stay like this until you take the nectar back. I tried resetting my game, putting them in the PC, and taking them into battle. Nothing stopped it from imitating Rotom. So yeah, definitely one of the more interesting glitches this game has to offer. It's not often you can alter a Pokemon's cry like this. As a final send-off, I did something I did not try in the regular Sun and Moon video. I tried swapping to the pink nectar while it was in its glitched origin form while holding the yellow nectar, and sure enough, it gave me Rotom's cry as well. You still go back to the altered form, so there's no real difference which route you take to get here. They both give you the cry. One thing I thought was interesting, the only place you can still hear Giratina's normal cry when in this glitched state is going into Pokemon Refresh. Have a listen. So yeah, in battles, in summaries, everywhere else we'll play Rotom's cry when you do the swap, just not in Pokemon Refresh. So as a whole, this glitch is incredibly weird, but I love it. These colored nectars are usually only used to change the form of Oricorio, so at least there's some semblance with changing Giratina, but it's important to note you have to use the nectars on the Pokemon to change their form, not make them hold them. So it just makes it even more confusing. But yeah, a Giratina Rotom. I wonder if other people would hear this if you got into an online battle, but again, I'm not on a real 3DS, so I don't have that capability, so I'm leaving that discovery for one of you. While that Pokemon Refresh thing, still playing Giratina's default cry, is fresh in y'all's minds, I wanted to cover another glitch that carried over from Sun and Moon. You already kinda got the gist of it from that last one, but just to clarify, this default cry glitch will happen with any other Pokemon that have form-specific cries when bringing them into Pokemon Refresh. So like last time, I'm going to showcase Oricorio. They have 4 forms, the default Bele, Pom-Pom, Pow, and Sensu. They each have their own unique cry depending on the form, so have a listen on the summary screen. Well, with this in the back of our heads, head into Pokemon Refresh from your menus. When you enter, the Pokemon will play a cry pretty much right away, and when you swap them around. Have a listen to their cries as I throw each of them out. You would expect to hear unique cries, but... Yeah, so regardless of the form, it will always play the original Bele's cry. This only happens once when it's first thrown out and will correct itself with any other cry after petting them or feeding them a treat. And like I said, this will happen with any other Pokemon that have form-specific cries. Kinda like the Giratina that turned into a Rotom. Even they played their default cry when first thrown out in Pokemon Refresh. Hey, remember that glitch in the regular Sun and Moon games where you could stand behind some crates in the Aether Paradise and have your character's outlines removed? For some reason, that is not a thing in this game, despite being the same dang building as the originals. Well, fear not, this insanely minuscule glitch is actually still a thing in Ultra Sun and Moon. And a big thanks to this comment from Brownian for bringing this to my attention. Turns out there's another spot that removes the character's outlines when standing behind it. This one's in Professor Kukui's lab, so run down Route 1 and head inside. Towards the back is this aquarium. Well, pay close attention to those thick outlines around my character because they are now gone. Whoa. Yeah, so I guess the game removes the outlines here since you're standing behind glass and water, which is a little different than the Aether crates. As for that one, the game assumed that we were standing behind an object, so it stopped tracing them. But this one, the devs had to know you were visible through the tank, so I don't really know why it happens here. Maybe the outlines would bug out since you're looking at the character through something? I don't really know. Also, why does my boy Love Disc look like a 32 by 32 pixel PNG, while Corsola has a fully rendered 3D model? They did my boy dirty. But yeah, I'm glad this glitch is back, as I think the character model looks so much better without the outlines, at least when playing with jacked up graphics on a PC. I had some people comment that the outline fits the game when playing on a small 3DS screen, and I do see your point with that, but in my case, I like it a lot better when it's all smooth and clean looking. Don't take that out of context. This is one of my favorites that got carried over from Sun and Moon, and is one that just about everyone who's ever played these games has experienced, even if they didn't notice. To quote my Pokemon Gen 3 video, and twice in my original— alright, this joke is already getting kinda old. Pokemon evolve. Yeah, get over it. But when a Pokemon evolves, you get taken to this fancy cutscene. Ooh. Well, if you know a Pokemon is about to evolve, and you know this cutscene is coming up, pay special attention to the top left corner of the main screen. It may be tough to notice without slowing down the footage, but as the black is fading out, you can actually catch a glimpse at the next stage of the evolution. So here I'm evolving my Dartrix, but you can just see Decidueye for a frame or two hanging out in the corner. The game is likely loading the model so it can instantly appear towards the end of the cutscene, but they did it a tad too late as we can see it pretty easily. It happens every single time with any Pokemon in any evolution method, whether it be leveling up, using an item, or after a trade. While it is tough to see if you're not paying attention, it's one of my favorites as the model is often cut off and in a weird position. So next time you go to evolve a Pokemon, take a closer look at the top left corner. Okay, so I quickly wanted to cover another one from Sun and Moon, and this one caused some back and forth in the comments on whether or not it's actually a glitch. So let me know what you think. But anyway, we need to go to Pony Island and head to the vast Pony Canyon trial site, where you fight Totem Komodo. Towards the start, you'll enter this cave where there's no music playing, just gusts of wind blowing through and other cavey ambient noises. Well, while we're in here, open your menu and go into any of the options, like your party or bag. Doesn't really matter. As you do, you might notice that all the background noise completely disappears, leaving us with only the menu UI sounds to listen to as we navigate around. Regardless of whether this is really a glitch or not, you gotta admit it's pretty eerie to have no other sounds playing. Now technically this isn't really a glitch, as the wind sounds are just a different audio track than the normal music and will always mute when in the menus. This isn't the best example as they're tough to hear, but when you're on a beach, there's the normal music playing but also the sounds of waves crashing into the shore. You can hear the sounds disappear when you go into a menu. But I still think it being completely quiet is pretty odd, as it's pretty much the only place in the entire game to my knowledge where there's no other music or sounds playing. And I still think there needs to be something playing here, even if it is just those same sounds on the actual audio track. But I will also say again, this could be helpful for fellow content creators out there, as we can capture sounds of Pokemon cries without having to do anything special. Just view their summary, or just grabbing the UI sounds. As one final send off to this, if you use Charizard to fly to a new location, the cutscene will also be muted besides the sounds of the cutscene itself. It's time to bring back a fan favorite segment from the original Sun and Moon glitch video. Say it with me now. Weird graphical glitches you can do by standing in a specific spot in a specific location. Woohoo. Okay, this one's just about on par with the one we covered in those games. This time we're heading to Resolution Cave on Pony Island. This is normally where Zygarde spawns in these games, but it doesn't really matter if you caught them already or not. We care about something more important. The ramp that brings you up to their platform. So head inside the cave and down to the room where there should be this ramp towards the back. While riding a Pokemon, pay close attention to the shadow underneath, the dark oval on the ground. As you go up the ramp, it seems to glitch out a good bit, clipping inside the ramp itself. If you turn around and walk down, it's totally fine. Same with moving side to side. It's only when you're riding up the ramp that it does clip through. Pretty crazy, right? Well, don't worry, it will do this with all the ride Pokemon you can use on land, with Machamps being the least affected and almost looks normal. And do not worry, everyone, this actually isn't the only place we can trigger this glitch. I just so happened to be climbing up Mount Lanakilla when I noticed it does it in 2 places near the last Pokemon Center, with one even going side to side, not just up and down. This back ramp looks basically identical to the Zygarde one as well, which is interesting, right? But if we check out the side one, we can see the culprit for this whole glitch. It seems as though the front legs of the ride Pokemon clip through the ramp, which also causes the shadow attached to it to clip under it as well. Isn't that neat? Does this actually do anything useful for us? No. Does it allow us to clip through the floor like the shadow does by hopping off the ride Pokemon in a specific spot? Nope. Is this an absolutely pointless glitch that I found on a single forum comment about and decided it was worth to put in a video? Yup. Are we moving on to a more interesting glitch? Yeah, I think so. Hey you. Yeah, you. Do you always want to land one-hit KO moves? Well, listen closely, because it only requires 2 turns of setup. All you need is a poison Pokemon that can learn Toxic and a one-hit KO move, such as Nidoking with Horn Drill, and another Pokemon with Instruct, which only Oranguru can learn, so you really don't have a choice. But Oranguru also has to go before Nidoking, so we need them to learn Trick Room as well to reverse the turn order. So now, heading into a double battle, we only need 2 turns to make this work. First turn, we use Toxic with Nidoking and Trick Room with Oranguru. We do this to not only make Oranguru go first next turn like I said said earlier, but also using Toxic here means it will be the move that triggers by Instruct, as it uses whatever the Pokemon did last turn. So as long as you're both still alive, we can start turn 2. This time, pick Horn Drill, or whatever one-hit KO move you have, and then use Instruct on that Pokemon. Real quick, I would like to point out that this Sableye used Confuse Ray on both of my Pokemon, so I had to break through Confusion 4 times to get this to work. And in Gen 7, it's a 33% chance that you hit yourself, so I got kinda lucky here. Anyway, as the turn plays out, you will be instructed to use Toxic first, eventually followed by the move you selected, which was your one-hit KO move. Thanks to this specific setup, this move will always connect. The target can be dug underground, in the middle of Fly, heck, it can be Rotom Giratina using Shadow Force. This one will always connect, knocking them out every single time. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But why does it work? Well, it's all thanks to Toxic. On paper, it's a 90 accuracy move, however, if the user is a poison type, the move will always connect, even when in Fly, Dig, or Shadow Force. You might see where this is going, but the Never Miss flag stays on or with that Pokemon for the rest of the turn. So in turn 2, when Nidoking gets to use 2 moves thanks to Instruct, the flag also applies to the second move, Horn Drill, a one-hit KO move that normally only has a 30% chance to connect. Also, by the way, thanks to some comments on my last video, it's not necessarily always 30%. It is 30 plus the level difference between the Pokemon using it and getting attacked. But in my case, I'm in the battle tree, locked to level 50 Pokemon, so there is a 30% chance if used normally. So I mean, it's a pretty practical way to knock out a Pokemon as it only takes 2 turns, you can set up Trick Room, and poison the other Pokemon not getting taken out. Honestly, really good value if you have some slow Pokemon in the back of your team. Also, one final note, that one-hit KO move doesn't technically need to be one. It can literally be any other move, as it will always land too. So maybe there is a scenario where hitting both Mons could be the better outcome, but I think fully knocking out anyone guaranteed is the better option most of the time. While on the topic of Trick Room, here's another rule-defying glitch, making a Pokemon too fast for Trick Room, allowing them to be so fast they still go first. This can be done with a super fast Pokemon that stats can reach over 1,809 speed. For this, I'm once again going to be using a speed form Deoxys with Timid Nature and perfect EVs and IVs, giving me a raw base stat of 504. But if we use the move Agility 3 times, raising it to +6, essentially giving us ×4 our speed, this Deoxys can reach 2016. What a good year that was. So yeah, in battle, there's just about nothing else that could outspeed this thing now, unless they also had this exact Deoxys too. So while Trick Room is activated, which says this specific text, slower Pokemon get to move first for 5 turns. Deoxys should go dead last in almost every scenario. But since we're talking about it in a video, clearly it doesn't, and you'll see this Deoxys still uses Psychic first before any other Pokemon can go, which is pretty cool. This will happen on every turn until Trick Room ends, where even still you are obviously the fastest Pokemon, so basically once you break that 1809 speed barrier, you will always move first. Now I did have some people in the comments on my last video explain why this happens. Basically there's a math formula applied to all the Pokemon speeds when Trick Room is activated, but if you're 1809 and above, the speed overflows, essentially breaking the formula and still allows us to go first anyway. So no matter which way you look at it, this Pokemon is too fast for Trick Room. This is definitely one of the easiest glitches to pull off in this game, but is also one of the most anticlimactic. All you have to do for this is either give your Pokemon a nickname or go into your PC and rename one of the boxes. All that matters is that we get to this text entry screen with the keyboard and everything. As you may or may not know, as I didn't until just now, if you press the X button, the last entered character will be converted from uppercase to lowercase and vice versa. Pretty simple, right? Well, this works with all 26 letters in the alphabet, but doesn't work for the special character E acute, which is the E with the acute accent above it. It's a letter in the Latin alphabet used in special cases, such as in the Pokemon name. Well, as you might be able to tell by the footage, clicking X does not convert the character from upper to lower, no matter what you do. Despite the fact that there is a matching upper and lowercase e acute, it just doesn't work for some reason, so you have to manually switch between upper and lowercase anytime you want to enter one of these characters. Like I said, nothing crazy by any means, but still interesting they didn't allow this conversion. Alright, this is one of my favorite battle glitches, as you have the ability to give a lot of moves ×16 base power, and even ×32 base power. How is this possible? With Rollout. We also need a Mimikyu on the field, so I just made it my doubles partner, but again, it can be another trainer's. Anyway, once in the battle, we need to use Rollout on the Mimikyu. As you may know, Rollout is a rock-type move that lasts 5 turns, but its damage snowballs pretty quickly. So the first turn, it would be ×1, then second, ×2, ×4, ×8, and then ×16 for the final 5th turn. Makes sense, right? Well, since we attack the Mimikyu to lock us in it, it creates a glitched state. You see, Mimikyu's signature ability is Disguise, meaning it just tanks the first hit regardless of how much damage it was supposed to do, and topples over, finally making it vulnerable. Well, this actually desynced the turn damage multiplier, meaning the turn counter got incremented to 2, but the damage stayed at ×1. So this means we are forced to use rollout for 4 more turns, which does eventually knock out the Mimikyu, but it happened on turn 5, meaning rollout is counted as over, but the damage multiplier only applied to ×8, meaning we are not locked into rollout and the game will automatically apply that final ×16 to whatever move we use next. To demonstrate this time, we have a level 100 Kyogre with 310 HP. I select Tackle with a Bidoof, which shouldn't do anything to this legendary Pokemon, but it still knocks it all the way down to 12, meaning a single tackle with a Bidoof did 298 damage. And if you really want to know, I tried using a normal tackle without the rollout glitch and it only did 19. So that checks out damage wise. If ×16 is not enough for some reason, like with a normal rollout, if you use Defense Curl prior, that final attack will be ×32 its base power, which is absolutely nuts and would do about 600 damage to this Kyogre. Also, in case you were curious, if I were to set up this glitch and still use rollout on the glitch turn, it would apply the multiplier but not lock us in. As you can see here, I'm still able to attack the next turn. So pretty sweet overall, and all you need is a Pokemon with rollout and a Mimikyu. You also don't even have to keep the Mimikyu alive the whole time during the 5 turns. You just have to be the one that breaks its disguise and activate the ability. That's the main component. So it is pretty tough to keep a Pokemon alive for 6 total turns to get this glitch off, but if you do, you can basically one-shot any Pokemon you'd like, regardless of type differences. Continuing on with some of my favorite battle glitches that carried over, how about turning a Pokemon invisible again? The setup for this is a little interesting. We need a Pokemon that knows Skydrop, that can also knock itself out after using it. So the simplest way I could think of was giving them a Life Orb and then using another Pokemon to False Swipe it down to 1 HP before using it. But the final and most important step is that you go into your settings and turn battle effects off. So as much as I do love animations, the glitch won't activate without this. So in a doubles battle, I did what I said and False Swiped my Life Orb holding Skydrop user as they took a Machop to the sky. Then you just have to survive that turn and have the move play out. You'll notice that neither Pokemon really comes back into view as their HP's drain, but then the Aerodactyl does come back to play the fainting animation. But where's the Machop? I guess since Skydrop knocked me out, the other Pokemon never got a chance to reappear, leaving us with this invisible opponent. I just let it sit here for a minute while the camera panned around and got some good shots of the trainer standing there with nothing in front of them. They will stay completely invisible during attacks and getting attacked. Like our poor Aerodactyl, they will only be visible once again once you knock them out. So is this useful? Not really, since we had to knock out our own Pokemon to do it, but I still think it's funny to create this effect. Alright, it's time for a battle glitch we didn't cover in the original Sun and Moon. It involves the move Wide Guard and was only a glitch in version 1.0 of the game. 1.1 corrected this bug, so just be aware of that. Anyway, Wide Guard is a move used in doubles battles that's supposed to protect both Pokemon from wide range moves, aka moves that hit multiple Pokemon such as Surf. But it has an unintended side effect in version 1.0. But first, we have to talk about Protect. If a Pokemon that uses Protect gets hit with a Z move, it doesn't fully block it, and still does 25% of the damage it was supposed to do. Well, for some reason, Wide Guard also has this effect when getting attacked. It will reduce the power of Z moves down to 25% as well. Take this footage for example. I use Bloom Doom on my Solgaleo without any protection and it does roughly 100 damage. But if I have Solgaleo use Protect and then get hit with Bloom Doom, it does about 25 damage. Now I used Wide Guard first, then got hit with Bloom Doom. You'll see that it also does about 25 damage, and even comes up with the same message, so Galio couldn't fully protect itself and got hurt. So yeah, an attacking move that Wide Guard shouldn't block anyway since it only targets one Pokemon, also for some reason reduces Z moves. Like I said, this was fixed in newer updates, so it's very interesting that it even happened in the first place. But I guess when online battles were first a thing, and the game was on 1.0 for everybody, this could have been a semi-useful glitch, as using Wide Guard would not only protect you from multi-target attacks, but also in the event that your opponent used a Z move. Alright, this is a pretty tame one, but I thought I should still include it anyway. So Own Tempo is an ability that prevents Pokemon from getting confused. However, Baton Pass is a move that swaps the current Pokemon out for another, while passing along conditions such as confusion. So in a battle, I got my own Pokemon confused and then Baton Pass to a Pokemon with Own Tempo. You would expect the ability tag to come on screen right away, but it just doesn't. I'm allowed to select a move and play out the turn. Only when it gets to my turn to move does the own tempo ability finally kick in just before using it. So I mean, really nothing crazy, you still can't force a Pokemon to have confusion, it just delays the ability kicking in. I still thought it was interesting on the battle status screen, you can see my Licky Licky says it has confusion, even though the ability right above it says it's supposed to prevent it. But still doesn't actually affect the battle in any way, so I mean it's really not worth trying out yourselves. On the topic of things activating late, this was something I wanted to show off anyway, and got to trigger while trying my last glitch. My Smeargle is holding a citrus berry, which is supposed to activate once I go below half health, and is supposed to heal me a little bit. However, this, along with other similar healing items, will only kick in if another Pokemon attacks you and knocks you below half health. If you're confused and hurt yourself, dropping below half HP will not trigger the berry. In fact, the berry will never trigger if you continue to hurt yourself. This is a pretty annoying glitch and could be the difference why you lose a battle, as those berries can allow you to survive an extra turn or two. But if it never gets triggered due to you hitting yourself, you're basically out of luck. This is a glitch in Gens 5, 6, and 7, so it's likely happened to some of you at some point, and is one of the more harmful battle glitches these games have to offer. This one may not even be a glitch, but is still kind of annoying for the player. So as you can see here, I have a level 16 Rowlet and a level 6 Rockruff. If Rowlet levels up, they should evolve, as they normally do at level 17, and the Rockruff should learn Bite if they level up. Well, head into your festival plaza and locate a rare kitchen if you have one. Here, you can buy meals that level up a Pokemon that eat them by 1. However, if we feed the Rowlet, elevating it to level 17, nothing happens. It doesn't evolve or do anything. Same for the Rockruff, it does not try to learn Bite. So it seems as though leveling up with the rare kitchen completely ignores any bonuses that are supposed to happen, such as evolutions and learning moves. My guess is that because we're in the festival plaza and the game isn't programmed to handle these events in this area, or it has something to do with the online/local communications, if you were to get taken to an evolution cutscene, it would break the communications or something. That's just my guess though, and regardless is a pretty annoying glitch if it is one. You can go to the move reminder to still learn the move that it skipped over, but this also costs us a heart scale. So yeah, I would just recommend staying away from rare kitchens when leveling up Pokemon, unless you know it won't cause it to ignore anything, or you just don't care. This was another battle glitch that carried over from Sun and Moon and is purely a visual thing. So normally, if you use Rain Dance, dark clouds appear over top and it begins to rain. Pretty normal, right? Well, keep that in the back of your mind while we use Electric Terrain first to make the field this yellow staticky mess, then use Rain Dance a few turns later. So now both are up, with Electric Terrain wearing off first. Once this happens, the rain effects will stay, but you might notice that the gray clouds are nowhere to be seen. So it looks like a clear night sky, but there's still rain without the clouds. Like I said, this is purely a visual glitch, where the game doesn't expect two terrain altering effects to be active at once, and one goes away before the other. And yes, it still does count as the rain being active, just without the clouds in the sky. Interestingly, and something I did not test in Sun and Moon, if you reverse the order so Rain Dance is used first, then Electric Terrain the turn after, when the rain clears, you will still see the yellow Electric Terrain effects, but after that clears, the dark clouds from the rain will stay behind. So even with all the terrain effects ending, the dark clouds are now stuck on the screen due to the glitch. Just to confirm, if we only used Rain Dance once the rain turns end, the clouds are supposed to clear with it, leaving us with just the regular sky. So having multiple terrain effects active with one of them fading before the other causes some interesting visual glitches, regardless of the order you do them in. So there were glitches in all the mainline 3DS Pokemon games. I really hope you enjoyed this little compilation, as I had a blast making all of these videos. And if you watched all the way through, I really appreciate it as it helps out the algorithm a ton. If you're in the mood for more Pokemon glitches, I made a similar video like this for all the Switch Pokemon titles. If you thought these glitches were crazy, you're in for a real treat with those. For those of you unaware, I've made it my life's goal to cover glitches in every single mainline Pokemon game. I'm currently about 2/3 of the way through this journey, and since Switch and 3DS are now wrapped up, that leaves the older generations like Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, Black 2 and White 2, and the real oldies of Gens 1 and 2. I do plan to put out similar glitch compilations for the DS and Game Boy when those are done, but it's going to be a long process, so make sure you stick around and subscribe. But for now, I'm going to get up out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, see ya!